So we will continue with our Python course, and today we will learn about functions and modules. First, we'll look at functions, and then we'll talk about Python modules. So let us go to that section. So Python functions. What are functions? Functions are blocks of reusable code, and they can take arguments and produce outputs. Very important. Functions are blocks of reusable code, right? So if we think that a piece of code is reusable, we'll write it as a function. And wherever we want to use that, we can call that function. Functions take inputs, which are called arguments, and produce outputs called return values. Functions make code more modular and organized. So how do you define a function? Def is the keyword, right, with which Python knows that, okay, now a function is coming, right? A function definition is coming. So def, this is the name of the function. Let's say grit is the name of the function. Name is the argument. And this formatted text is what it is returning, right? Right. So if you see, if I create a add function, add is the name of the function. A and B are the parameters. And I'm returning A plus B, which is the value, right? Similarly here, square, if I create a function called square x, return x to the power 2, right? So let's now create our own function. Now that we know how to create a function, let us try it out. So very important, right? Whenever you start writing something, these are some housekeeping rules or hygiene rules, right? Who has written it? So let's say I put my name, author Rajiv Deb. So this found, right? So this is called a comment, right? If any comment that I put, I need to prefix it with the pounds, right? So this is non-executable. This is to put proper comments in your code, right? And date, today's date is December 2nd, December 2023. And what is the purpose, right, of this program? We'll say this will have examples of Python functions, right? So what function will write? We will create a function that converts an uppercase string to lowercase. Okay. How do we write it? So first of all, to create a function, what do I do? What is the keyword? That is called def. Now I need to name the function. Name the function always such that it is, by looking at the function, I should be able to understand what the function does. So I'll say lower underscore to uppercase, right? And this is again a like a recommended way to name a function. There are multiple other standards, but one of the standard is everything is lower in the name of the function, and each word each syllable in, or each word in the function is separated by an underscore, right? So this is some guidelines of writing good code, right? Now I need to pass a parameter. So this is my name, right? I need to pass an argument now. What will be my argument? The argument will be the string that I need to convert to uppercase. Oh, sorry. So I said converts an uppercase string to lowercase, right? So it will be upper to lowercase, and then our argument will be the text that, or the string that we need to convert to lowercase. So I'll say input str, right? Now, one more good practice is whenever I give a or define the argument name, there is also recommended, if we know what the data type will be, to type the data type like this, right? So it will make it strongly typed function name. And the after this, like this is the name of the function. This is the argument. Now it needs to followed by a colon, right? So that is, I have defined my function, or I have now named the function, named the argument. Now I need to write the logic of this function, what this function will do, right? So this function, as I mentioned, it will take an uppercase to lowercase, right? So for that, I get the input string, right? Input string dot, I'll use a Python built-in function now, right? It is called dot upper. So I take the input string dot upper, and the output of this, let me put into a variable. I'll say, let's say converted string, right? Uppercase converted string. So whatever is has been done by this piece of code, that will be now put into this variable. We learned about variable in our previous class, right? Now the next thing I need to do is I need to return this, right? So if I don't return it, if I call from another Python module or a function, I'll not get this value, right? To get this value, I need to say return. Now return this value to me, right? That's all, right? We are done creating the function. Now, how do I use it? So let's say, okay, so first we'll see a simple way, and then from another function. So I say if name, and we saw what if name equal to main means in another in our previous session. Name equal to main, I will call this function. So what is this function name? Upper to lowercase. We need to give an input string also. I'll say in string. Now see, I did not name the same variable. I don't need to. That's why I changed the name, right? I don't need to have the same variable name, but this variable, I need to put it here, right? So I'll say input string is upper to lower. The brown fox jumped over the wall, right? So this is my variable. This is the value of the variable. This variable I will pass as an argument now here, right? So now, okay, so now it is calling it, but then I need to, whatever it will return, right? I need to take it in another variable. So I'll say, let's say UC uppercase txt, right? So now what is happening? It calls this function, returns the value, and I get this value in UC underscore text. If I print this, you'll see now. Oops, what happened? Okay, so one mistake I did is I said upper to lowercase, but here I said upper, so it should be dot lower, right? And this should be actually, then it's a lowercase converted one, right? Lowercase converted string, and here I'll say lowercase lc text, let's see now. Yep, the brown fox jumped over the wall, right? Now let's say that I have another function called string operations, right? String operations, name of the function. and operation type, right? Now we will learn multiple things here, right? Operation type. The operation type can be, I can convert a lower to upper, or I can strip the string, or I do a substring of the string, right? These are different operation type. And based on the operation type, we'll use the specific function, right? So by default, I'll give a default value to operation type, and the operation type, I'll say upper to lower. So that means if I do not pass any argument, any argument, the default value of the operation type is upper to lower, right? And okay, right? So I am naming, I'm done naming the function and passing the argument. Argument is op type. Now I'll say if op type equal to, this is the equality assignment operator that we learned in our previous class. So I'm saying if the operation type is this, I need a colon, right? Then you call the function upper to lowercase with the input string. Now, what is the problem in this code now? Where will you get this string? Right? I did not pass this. Like when I call this function, how will this get the in string if this is also not passed in this string operation, right? So I will say in str, comma. Now see, I did not put this after this, right? Let's see what happens if I put after this. See, I get an error. What does the error say? Non-default parameter follows default parameter. Very important, right? This is a default parameter with a default value. So non-default parameters where there is no default value should always be before the parameters where you have some default value, right? Very important, right? Now, if op type equal to upper to lower, I have the int string and I can put it here, right? And say results. I'll say operation result equal to this, right? Else, let's say it is not upper to lower, and we'll say if op type equal to lower to upper, right? Then we'll call another function. Let us write that function. This function would be, as you might have already guessed, that we'll just reverse it. We'll say lower to uppercase. We'll have the uppercase converted string. Here I'll say upper, and I'll return the uppercase converted string, right? So if the op type is lower to upper, then our op result, operation result, will come from lower to upper in string, right? Our logic is done, but what do I need to do next? I need to return this off. Otherwise, I will not be able to get it back, right? Of result, right? I'm returning this operation result. Okay, so since it is within this, right, it is saying just add it as a global, right? So that the scope of this is across this function, right? So now I'll say int string. Okay, now I'll say int string is this op type equal to, so here my op type would be lower to upper, lower to upper, op type is lower to upper, and op result equal to string operations, input string. I need to pass the input string, then I need to pass the operation type as well, right? And now if I, so lower to, no, so this one is, this should be upper to lower, right? Because I have a upper to lower, right? So I'm passing this. Now if I run this function, right, it gave me the same thing, right? But now what I can do is I can change it. Let's say I am going to the market, all lowercase. I'll pass the operation type as lower to upper, run it. Everything is uppercase now. So one of the homework now, let me give the homework now. Homework. So homework is add other operations type as below, right? Number one, substring, right? Given a string, print the first two letters of the string, right? Next, given a string, split it based on a delimiter. So what I mean by that is, example, if the string is, let's say, if the string is the quick brown fox jumped. Okay, let me make it little simpler for this one, right? Let's say it is my first name and last name, right? Let's say output should be first name, comma, deb, right? Hint, use split, and then concatenate the split parts with comma in between. I want you to do this homework, like how to use split, right? So create two functions here. The function, I'll just make it, so I'll say def, the first function is print the first letters of, two letters of, right? So it's a substring, right? So I'll say substring of, I'll say split the, okay, split, I'll name split is the next one. Here I'll say substring the text, right? And you will have the input string. I am not going to put the logic right now. Now, if I want to, like if I want a blank function, right? You can use pass, right? But this is where you need to put the logic, right? This is your to do. Add the logic. Add the appropriate logic, right? This is one function. The other function that you need to write is split the text. Okay. So this is for homework. So what we have learned so far, let us go back. We learned how to create a function. We learned about function parameters, function return values. Let's talk about, okay, we spoke about default parameters also. One more thing is the variable scope, right? So if you see here, we said global, right? So when you use global, so variables defined inside a function have local scope. They are only accessible within that function. Variables outside, defined outside functions have global scope. They are accessible from anywhere in the code, right? So here, since within this code block, right, that's why I put global here, right? The other thing is like, if I want some variables to be accessible to all the function, right? I will say global like this, global, my variable, let's say it's a string variable and value is 2, right? My variable global, okay, if it is global variable, I think it doesn't allow statement to be found. Okay. Okay, I'll find that answer. I think for global variable, it's not allowing me to typecast it. But let's say this is a global variable. Now, if I print this function from, okay, so let me show it. So global variable, def show global variable example, right? And I am not passing anything, right? I'll say print my variable. Okay. And then I'll have another one on def show global variable example. So let's say this is example 01. This is example 02. And here we'll do it after we see the global variable thing, right? So let me call this function my variable equal to test, let's say, right? And if I call this now from here, so one more mistake I did, which is I did not return the value, right? So let me, oh, in fact, I don't need to, I just printing it, right? So just to show it, right? So let me run this now. Test, right? Because it called this function, right? It called this function, and from here, I was able to get the print variable. Let's say this is not a global variable now, and I want to, and my variable, I defined it here. If I put it here, it will say that I am not able to find it, right? Where is this, right? You'll get this error, right? But if I do a global variable here, my variable, I say test, let's say this is 02, this is 01. Both this function have now access to modify this variable, right? So if I run this now, one after the other, we'll see what happens. So first it will print. Did I make it different? Yeah, test 01. First it will say test 01, then test 02, right? Because in show variable, right, I am making it test 01, but in show variable example 2, I'm making it test 02, right? So this is about the scope of variables. If I write something within a function, it will be accessible within that function only. But if I say global variable, this variable will be accessible to all the functions. So that is a variable scope. Now let's talk about modules. What are modules? Modules are files containing Python code. They allow you to organize functions and variables, right? How do you use module functions? Like let's say I created a my math module function, right? I can import that function into another Python code, right? And use it. And then we'll look at some of the Python standard libraries. Now we'll code it and see how it works, right? Then it will cement our understanding of Python modules, right? So here what we are, so we have seen functions. Now we are going to see how we can create Python modules and use those Python modules in another Python module, right? So for that, let me create a directory here in PyCharm. I could have created a not intentionally. I'm not creating Python package, but because I wanted to show you something. So I'm creating a directory, and the name of the directory is, let's say, all my modules, reusable modules. I will define it here, right? And now within that, let me create a Python file called my math module, right? And in my math module, I create a function called add number 1, which is an integer, number 2, which is also an integer, right? And then let's do sum equal to num1 plus num2, and then return the sum, right? So this is a module that I have written within my modules directory, right? So if I have to import it, right? If I have to import it in another module, it needs to, the other module needs to consider as a package. For this module to be considered as a package, and so that we can import in another module, it is necessary to create another Python file. It is called init file, or it is also called dunder file, double underscore init file, right? Dunder, INIT. So I did a double underscore before, double underscore, right? You put underscore. So when I add this blank init.py, there can be coding in init.py. When we go to advanced Python class, we'll see what code we can put in init.py. But for a particular module to be considered as a package, we need to add a underscore init underscore .py, right? Then I should be able to import it into another module, right? So now let's create a Python file where we want to import this module. So 07 will say import module example, right? And what do I need to import? This add function, right? So I'll say if name equal to main, my num1 is 4, num2 is 6, and I want to use the add function, add num1 num6. Now see, sorry, num2. Now see, this is showing an error, right? Because I have not defined it anywhere here, but I need to import it. I'll import, see, so this is the good thing about an IDE like PyCharm, right? When I hover on this error, it said that import this name. Where from I import this? If I click on it, it will actually tell you where from you can import it. This is where my modules, right? My modules, within that my modules, I have the my math module dot add, right? If I click on it, see it says from my modules dot my math module, import add from my modules dot my math module dot py. Within that, I have that function add. I have imported it like this, right? Now I can take this sum here and print the sum. Right? 10. Homework. To do, add a subtract module under my modules and use it here. That is homework number 2, right? I'll put it as also homework. So this is, okay, so this is about module, Python module. We looked at what are modules, how to use module function, and how to import it. Now we'll look at few Python standard libraries. So here I have created my custom module, right? But Python has also some built-in modules. We'll see an example of 3, right? First is, it is called random, right? You don't have to write this random file. It is random logic. It is already provided as part of the Python package, right? To use random, I import random and then see how I generate a random integer. So if I have to generate a random integer between 1 and 10, I say random dot rand init 110. So this is the function which is already written in this package, which is built in when we install Python, right? So the other functions in the random package are random.random, right? Generate a random floating point number between 0 and 1. This is what this does. Shuffle a list randomly, right? If I have a list, if I want to shuffle it, I use a shuffle function, right? If select a random item from a list, I say random.choice, my list, right? Generate a random sample of unique values from a range, right? I use sample. Range is another built-in function within Python, right? So between 1 to 10, right? I do a random sampling, right? Now, if I run this, you'll see the first one generated the random number, right? Between, so first one is what? First one is this, right? Random number between 1 and 10, I got 4. Random float between 0 and 1, right? I got a number. Shuffle list, next one was a shuffle, it shuffled it, right? Then random choice, right? 1, right? Randomly select 1 out of the value, that I got 5. Random dot sample between 1 to 10, pick 3 randomly, right? So this is what I got, right? So this is how you use random. Next, let's look at the date time one. Date time is another important built-in package within Python. So here I can get the current date time by doing datetime.now. If I want to create a specific date, 15th if I remember, April 2023, right? Then this is how we use it. Date difference, this is how I do the date difference. And if I want to convert the date into string, this is how we do it, right? By using string ftime. Let us run this, right? So if you see current date and time, this is the current date and time, 2nd December, and this is the time right now in PST. Specific date, it converted into specific date. This is the specific date, datetime.datetime. I gave the year, month, and day, right? So it converted into a date format. This is the difference between specific date and current date time. And this is how it is formatted to a string, right? So that is date time. The last one is math. So math is another built-in function. I can do a square root, I can do a factorial, I can find the sine theta, sine of an angle, right? I can find the value of pi using the math function. There are a lot of good functions within this math package, right? So if I run this, the first one will give you the square root. result, right? Square root of 25. Next one will give the factorial of 5. And this will be the sine theta of 30 degree, right? And math dot pi, the value of pi, right? So this is about function and modules. So what we completed today is our third session. Actually, it's a fourth session because I think we split this into two. So we completed functions and modules. In our next session, we'll talk about data structures. That's all for today.